Overcheck, and this is I-24 News. It is day 233 of the Israel-Hamas war. Perhaps the most jarring news of the day is coming out of central Israel, which saw rocket sirens go off for the first time in 4 months after Hamas launched a barrage of 8 rockets into the center of the country. Now, one of those rockets directly impacted a home in Herzliya after a large piece of shrapnel crashed into the building. There were several others that were intercepted by the Iron Dome, but rocket shrapnel did fall at 2 locations in the central Israeli city of Ra'anana and also between the cities of Petah Tikva and Bnei Brak. Well, at least 2 people were treated for injuries sustained while running to shelters. The IDF estimates at this point that the barrage was launched in response to Israeli military activity against a large rocket production site in the area of Rafah. Now, other than that major barrage, there's been ongoing rocket fire into southern Israeli towns and northern Israeli towns throughout the day. This as ceasefire and hostage release negotiations between Israel and Hamas are set to resume on Tuesday in Cairo, according to Egyptian officials. Well, let's turn to the Israel-Gaza border, where our correspondent Zach Anders joins us live. Later on, we're going to be talking about what's happening in the north as well, because we've seen major rocket fire into northern Israel. But tell us about today's attack from Hamas. You know, what does it tell us about Hamas's arsenal out of Rafah, and what are the latest updates as of now?
Yeah, well, first I'll paint the scene for what you see behind me. This is Lag BaOmer, which we come down to Sderot so often and film from the lookout into Gaza, but figuring that this is a scene that we don't see every night, and the reveling the festivities, wanted to give you a little bit of what's happening behind us as they're burning some of these bonfires. Kids out here too as well. Shifting gears to what we saw today, this major barrage of what was confirmed to be 8 rockets, but major because it was able to reach into central Israel, reached into Tel Aviv from the Rafah area. That's 50 miles of airtime that those rockets had before they reached and were intercepted over Tel Aviv.
Important to note that the IDF has named an Israeli soldier who died of wounds sustained in Gaza combat last week. We'll be discussing that later on. Well, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has just visited Rafah, where he met with Israeli soldiers, and he gave them this message. Have a listen.
Our goal in the Gaza Strip is very much sharpened here in Rafah, to eliminate Hamas, bring back the kidnapped, and maintain freedom of action. This is a key thing. On the issue of the abductees, we are making tremendous efforts. We have done so far. We are doing this right now, and we will continue to do so in the future in every possible way, both physically and in reaching the deals. Remember, your job is to eliminate Hamas. To win the battle, our job is to take it and move it to the next level in the Gaza Strip and the entire Middle East. And this is something that is connected to each other. There are no external parties, no factors that speak on behalf of this is the law, and this is how it works, and this is how it will work.
Hamas is not moving from the demand to end the war permanently. What are we actually expecting from these upcoming negotiations? Has anything really changed here?
Well, in the coming hour, we will see the cabinet meeting again to discuss the latest on the possible hostage deal. From an Israeli official, we are getting that among the issues that will be discussed is actually the proposals that were discussed during the Paris summit last week.
Rockets have been launched from Lebanon into Israel in the last hour alone, with rocket fragments landing in the Kiryat Shmona area and damaging property. Now, a 40-year-old man has been lightly wounded in that latest attack, but it comes after at least 15 rockets were fired from Lebanon into northern Israel earlier in the day, with rocket and drone alert sirens going off almost every hour in northern Israeli communities. Well, Israeli forces have attacked the sources of fire in response. This comes after the IDF said that it struck Hezbollah targets in 5 villages in South Lebanon overnight into Sunday. Lebanese media has also reported that Israel attacked a vehicle in the city of Nakura in southern Lebanon with a drone. And sticking with us, well, the Rafah border crossing with Egypt remains closed, but after a phone call between U.S. President Joe Biden and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, a workaround has been found, rerouting the aid through the Kerem Shalom crossing nearby. Our senior correspondent Bianca Zanini has the story.
A wasteland of rubble. As the war continues in Gaza, displaced Palestinians search for shelter. tents and makeshift housing expanding to the beaches, schools serving as camps, others returning to the ruins of their homes. Meanwhile, from the south to the north, fighting on the ground continues, with 800,000 Palestinians having fled Rafah as Israel pushes on with its incursion to the city. On Friday, the ICJ ordered Israel to cease its military offensive in Rafah and to reopen the Rafah border with Egypt in order to allow in more humanitarian aid to the Strip. On Sunday, 200 additional aid trucks, including 4 carrying fuel, were set to enter Gaza today through the Kerem Shalom crossing, according to the Egyptian Red Crescent. The trucks were rerouted from the Rafah crossing with Egypt, once a main artery for aid into Gaza. It's been closed since Israel took over the Gazan side in early May. Egypt has refused to reopen the crossing until Israeli troops withdraw from the Gazan side. Meanwhile, aid has been piling up, unable to enter.
There are some aid packages and some trucks that have been waiting for more than 2 months to enter through the Rafah border crossing. Some aid packages require a certain temperature and certain cooling temperature. We coordinate on this with specialists who are highly trained in the storage of food and medical supply until, God willing, the efforts of Egypt bears fruits for the border to reopen from the Israeli side, in coordination with all the parties. We hope the border will reopen as soon as possible.
In a phone call between Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and U.S. President Joe Biden, a temporary solution was found to reroute the trucks through the Kerem Shalom crossing. According to the IDF, last week a total of 2,065 trucks carrying humanitarian aid were inspected by Israeli authorities and transferred into Gaza through 2 main crossings, as well as 127 trucks worth of aid entering through the newly built American pier.
For news, first our headlines. Hamas fired rockets to central Israel today from Rafah. More Israeli hostages return in body bags and no deal inside. And after the International Court's decision, Israel is taking new steps in the Rafah area. Desperation is growing among Israeli hostage families as negotiations continue to drag on. I-24 News' Balir Sladin joins us live now from Tel Aviv with the families. Balir, what's the latest there?
Yes, well, this evening at around 8:30 p.m. There will be a meeting for the war cabinet led by the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and an Israeli official saying that among the things that will be discussed in that meeting, it's going to be the ongoing negotiation or any proposal for a hostage deal with Hamas, according to what has been discussed during the Paris summit last week, where the CIA director, as well as the head of the Mossad and also the Prime Minister of Qatar had been and reached or actually talked about some proposal that